Hello, everyone. Welcome to 15th PMI question answer session. Today, we will be talking about supporting team performance. This is one of the important topics in people domain. So we started with Agile. So first 100 questions were relevant to Agile. And then we started people domain. So people domain is very important for exam. So today we will be discussing question number 141st to 150. So let's start. Your time starts now. Again, you will be reading the question and you will be answering in the chat window directly to me. So your time starts now. All right. So, okay. Sergio, you have chosen option A. Could you please explain why?
Uh, Actually, I'm not familiar with MBO, so I just chose what I felt like the most close.
All right. No problem. Anybody else? So, Sarika, you have chosen option A.
Yes, same, Amar. So I have not yet come to this lesson while reading. So I thought the individual objective should align with organizational goals for a positive change.
Okay, all right. So I can see option D. Francis, you have chosen option D, and then you have chosen option C.
Yes, I'll stick with C. I initially chose option D. Then I had some skeptical, so I decided to go with C because MBO focuses mainly on the individual performance, which also targeted by certain series of organizational or project objectives. So I'll go with this C instead of D. I wasn't sure, but I think at this point I'll go with C.
All right. Okay, Kenjin.
Yeah, so I also choose like relevant. It is relevant to the question, so I choose the A. I'm not 100% sure for that it's correct or no.
All right. So management by objective is a theory that actually what happens, organizational objectives are defined. Step number one is you define organizational objective. And then you translate those objectives into employees' objectives. So step number two is based on organizational objectives, employees' objectives or teams' objectives are defined. And after that, next is just a second. Okay, after that, third step is these objectives are discussed with employees, they are shared with employees. They are shared with employees. And then based on, please keep yourself on mute, everybody. Okay, so based on that, we agree on certain objectives, and then those objectives are monitored and then we do evaluation, and based on that, we give rewards to team members. So this is a 5-step formula for management by objective theory. Now, if you look at this, question says, after implementing management by objective in your project, you observed increased team engagement and commitment. Now, what do you think, which step is contributing to increasing in team engagement and commitment? Try again. If these are 5 steps, what do you think, which step would increase team engagement and commitment? First one, second one, third one, fourth one, or fifth one? Anyone, please.
And the reward.
Reward, okay. Anybody else?
Third step, because the overall objective is shared with the employees, so they might get more aligned towards the overall
What
organization.
happens? Absolutely. So third step, when we share these objectives with employees, we seek their input and we make sure that they are aligned with it and they know what exactly they would be doing. So team involvement is the key in this management objective. Management do not decide objective by themselves. They involve team members, and it's a shared process in which team members participate and they decide their objectives. So that's where when people are involved, they feel ownership and responsibility. So ownership and responsibility comes into picture when people are involved. So engagement and commitment enhance when you involve people. Correct answer is option B, employee involvement in setting their own objectives, right? Let's read the explanation, then if you have any comment, we'll take that. All right, I hope it is clear. Anyone who has a comment or question? So in order to enhance employees' participation and motivation, we use management by objective. All right, next question. All right, Shankar, why do you think option C is correct?
Yes, because they have actually I have like two options here because uh they need to know like how much skill gap is needed for a team in order to like align them with the project. So for that they need to initially set up skill gap analysis. They called as IDPs, individual development program. So those things have to be conducted in order to like measure like what kind of training they need, like what kind of uh, what to say the skill they needed. So they need to know the data in order to set those things.
All right. Anybody else? Lala, what do you think C is the right option?
So obviously we have a problem here, right? The team members, they have a gap in their skills, and in order for us to find out what is the effective way, I chose C. So we conduct a skill gap analysis, right, to find out where they actually need the the training.
All right. Thank you. Francis, you have chosen option D. Why?
I chose option D because I think you can perform like an analysis among the team members and then identify the skills the gap between the skills and then what is recommended for training so they can catch up. I think that's why I chose D.
Okay. The only problem with option D is that performance appraisals are conducted at certain intervals, right? So we don't know when those performance appraisals were they conducted or not, and when they would be conducted, right? And the scope of performance appraisals is limited, right? So correct option is option C. Whenever you see a skill gap, you compare individual capacities with the project requirement and to see what is the difference between those, and accordingly you suggest right set of trainings. So correct answer is option C, conduct a skill gap analysis comparing current team skills against project requirements. Let's read the explanation. All right, I hope it is clear. So whenever you have any comment or anything, any follow-up question after reading the explanation, just raise your hand, okay? So that would be helpful if you have a different perspective. Okay, let's move to next question. All right, so I can see different answers. So Sergio, you have chosen option C. Why?
I had too many options. I chose the solely for the reason that if we if our performance is better than anticipated, I just thought it would be a good idea to lower the resources needed for the project, and I would submit a change for that. But
why would you submit a change request? What do you want to change?
The resources needed for the project.
You want to minimize those resources or you want to increase those resources?
Minimize.
Minimize, okay. But is there any indication in the question that says you have too many resources?
So we are ahead of schedule and under the budget. And if everything goes the same for the whole project, that means that, yeah, we have more resources than we need.
Okay, right. So if I, take your assumption into consideration, so first thing is, even if you have such situation, first thing is you need to analyze like why it is the case. Maybe team is super efficient. You have right number of resources, but they are very efficient. Or maybe you have more resources. So first you need to determine what is the reason, then you can take the right step. So I understand your logic and it makes sense, but first you need to determine like this is the reason. once you determine, so for example, if it says you conducted the analysis and as a result of analysis, you came to conclusion like you have more team members, then you would go for submit a change request, right? And still you need to, plan for that. You need to plan. Once you develop a plan, then you move for a change request for the approval of that plan. So first identify the problem. After identification of the problem, suggest solution or plan, then go for change request. If you haven't planned anything, what they will be approving. So plan is the first step. Okay. Jashri, you have chosen option A. Why?
Ruling out the other three options, Amar, no action is required is not the right answer.
Okay.
B. And then C is already, you have said it is a no, right? And D, plan and outline potential development opportunities for the team. That analysis has already been done and strengths and weaknesses have already been identified. So the next only suitable option to my understanding was utilizing the individual and team assessment tools and techniques. It's already said that employing the necessary tools and techniques, but we need to utilize them appropriately with the team's capacity or whatever.
Okay, great. So let's try to understand this option. So you're saying we need to go with utilize individual and team assessment. So team assessment has already been done. So what does it say? It says after following the resource management plan and employing the necessary tools and techniques, you have successfully identified the strengths and weaknesses of your project team. So it means assessment has been done. So based on assessment, you understood team's weaknesses and strengths. So it is already done. If something is already been done, there is no point of doing it again. So submit a change request. I told you, if you haven't planned anything, you can't do that. So if you have identified your team's weaknesses, the next step is plan how to handle those weaknesses. So planned and outline potential development opportunities, which would be handling those weaknesses or, solving those weaknesses. So correct answer is answer option D, right? If anyone has a different perspective, please present. Let's review the answer. All right, I hope it is clear. So next question. All right, Rahul, you have chosen option B. Why?
I'm confused actually between B and C. I don't know what 360-degree feedback is. I think that might be the answer. But if that's not, then I think it's B. So I chose B because while in this situation, you have to always be positive rather than, I mean, you have to deal very carefully with such situations rather than, complaining about to that person that, okay, you're not behaving properly and all that. You need to also praise that person for, good stuff that he or she does and everything. And also side by side, you need basically balance out the scales. So you need to point out both the things. I think that's important. But yes, again, I would really like to learn about what's 360-degree. I don't know
Okay.
that. So
All
I
right.
could be wrong on B.
Thank you. Great. Shankar, why do you think A or B?
Yeah, because like a 360-degree feedback in the sense it is like it gives like entire like comprehensive perspective. Like here they already stated he's an excel. I mean, he's excel in technical skills. So I think that doesn't be needed here. And like option D is like offering specific feedback without inviting a dialogue about the feedback. Like that is, I think it's irrelevant here. But like discussing specific unhelpful behavior is what is suggested in the question as well. Because like what is the best approach and for providing effective feedback is like uh, we just want to like tell him what need to be done and how need to be done, like suggesting him how to improve it, because other things are already good with him. So I think like A is fine, and like being positive, like that is also important because he's a talented guy. We should not lose him. So that also be we should be have an eye on it. So I was like confused between A and B.
All right. Thank you. So I can see B as well. So Shazman, why you have chosen option B?
Yes, I was also confused between B and C, but I assume that option C is something kind of a fabricated option that has been designed to
Distract.
yes, for
Okay.
distraction purposes, because I have never heard of this 360-degree feedback. So I
All
just
right.
went with option B.
Great. So two things don't do in exam. I was thinking about this yesterday as well. So one, do not cross any option if it is too simple. So don't think like this is simple option, so this can't be the correct answer. Okay. It is simple, difficult, easy, or whatever. If it is making sense, stick to that. You understand? Number one. And number two, do not ignore an option or tick an option if you don't know anything about that. So most of the time, what I have seen is students either they completely ignore an option if they don't know anything about that, or they pick that option because they don't know anything about that. So in that situation, use elimination technique. So for example, if you're not sure about 360-degree feedback, then use elimination technique like, can I eliminate option A? Can I eliminate option B? Can I eliminate option D? So use this technique. Now, the problem in this question is that you need to address a challenge regarding a team member who has excellent technical skill, but poor collaboration. The problem is with poor collaboration. So one of the principles of feedback is that directly talk about that behavior which is creating problem. Don't be generic. So for example, don't say like, please improve your behavior. What does it mean? Talk about specific instances. Now, option one says discuss specific unhelpful behavior and suggest improvements. So it doesn't say you are getting negative here, you are criticizing, you're not criticizing. It doesn't say don't be positive. It just says be specific about the behavior. Give them the actual examples so that they are able to improve it. If you're not providing the right feedback, if you're just being positive and generic in your feedback, how that would help that person improve that particular behavior? So whenever you see a problem in a person, try to address that problem. But it doesn't mean like you could be criticizing or be negative. No, all other options are not addressing the problem. So problem is poor collaboration. So option B, be positive about the feedback while suggesting overall behavioral improvement. No, the problem is with poor collaboration. You need to tell that employee improve collaboration, and these are the ways you can, improve the collaboration. Use 360-degree feedback. Now, what is 360-degree? 360-degree feedback is, for example, if I wanna get feedback about our performance assessment of Fahad, so what I will be doing is I will be asking all of you anonymously. I will be sending a feedback form. So Lala would be evaluating Fahad, Jashri would be evaluating Fahad, Sarju would be evaluating Fahad. So all the team members, subordinates, seniors, they would be evaluating each other. This is called 360-degree feedback. So just to avoid biases, we do that. So that is not relevant here. You understand, everyone? Use 360-degree feedback is not relevant. If you understand the problem is with poor collaboration, talk to that individual and try to address that problem. Offer specific feedback without inviting a dialogue. No, there should be a dialogue. When you provide feedback, dialogue means two-way communication. If you provide feedback, ask for feedback. Like, do you like it? Do you have any other opinion? So the right answer is discuss specific unhelpful behavior and suggest improvement. This is a positive approach. You are discussing the problem and you're trying to help that individual to improve it. All right, Lela.
Yeah, why it says unhelpful behavior? That's what threw me out. First, I was gonna go with A. Then when I saw the unhelpful behavior, I was like, this guy is already, I mean, this person, team member already has a behavior problem. So unhelpful behavior,
Yeah,
that's
so poor collaboration is unhelpful, which is written poor collaboration, which affects team dynamics. So try to be specific about that unhelpful behavior means poor collaboration.
I see. You're rephrasing the question there, right? And then answer. I see it. Okay.
All right, let's read the explanation. All right, I hope it is clear. Let's move to the next question. All right, so Kinjal, you have chosen option C. Why? Okay, Yusuf, you have chosen option D. Why?
Yeah, because here you are looking for the individual and the team as a whole, and then you have a standard that you are comparing to. So it's not only the individual, it's because sometimes the individual is good, but the team is bad. And sometimes both of them, they are not within the standard, even if they are good. So overall quality should be three aspects: team, individual, and quality. That's why the indicator should be there.
All right, okay. Anton, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, I think D is the evaluation against the earlier set up KPIs. Like that's the whole idea of assessment. You assess it against something, and in this case, those KPIs, they are the goals that are supposed to be achieved. So again, but I'm speaking based on my experience. To be honest.
Okay, Anton, if I ask you, if you read the question, what exactly you're measuring? What's you're measuring?
Team performance.
You're measuring team performance, right?
Right.
Now, in Agile, there's a concept of team like collectivism. You don't see team as collection of individuals. You consider team as one unit. Until and unless you see some problem, you find a complaint regarding individuals, you focus on collective performance. So if you read the question, it says, as a project manager, you are in the process of conducting a performance review for your project team. So according to best practices in project management, what should be the main focus of your assessment? Main focus of your assessment. So if you read PMBOK Guide 7th edition, it clearly says the main focus of team assessment is how effectively team has uh, achieved the goal of the product or project development.
So which is B?
Evaluating the contribution of each individual team member to the project, no. When we evaluate team performance, we don't primarily focus on individual performances. Individual performances are secondary. Assessing the overall team achievement of project objective, this is correct. Analyzing both the achievement of goals and personal, yes, we do, but that is not the main objective. Assessing the performance of individual team members against KPIs, no, that's again not. So individual performances are different, team performances are different. So when you're focusing on team performance, specifically in Agile, especially when teams are self-organized and there is a servant leadership, you focus on the overall achievement of the team's objective. Let's read the explanation. All right, I hope it is clear. If you have any comment, please go ahead.
One quick thing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about team's performance here, but I mean, as the word itself talks about, it's team's performance, which also talks about their personal development, which is, how. So we could say project was successful, but let's say we have 5 people, so 3 could have done great, but 2 didn't do that well. But as per this, we are really saying like everyone did great, but that's not the case. So if we are doing reviews, so we need to see how each one of them did and if they improved or not, or because right
That's correct.
now, as per this answer, we are only looking at project. We are not really looking at team. We are looking at only the project.
So that is correct. So what we do is when we focus on team's performance, our primary goal is, so if I go back and read the question, it says, what should be the main focus of your assessment? So when we look at the team performance, main focus is overall collective efforts of the team. What you are saying is that is next step. Okay, collectively as a team, we have performed well. Now let's talk about individuals, maybe for rewards purposes or for something else. So first we evaluate performance as a team. So as a team, how this unit has performed. So the main focus is team. What you are saying, that is the next step.
There's a very thin line, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. When we have self-organized teams, the focus should be on the overall team performance rather than individuals, because team acts as a unit. So rather than being our micromanager or doing micromanagement, we focus on the high level performance of the team because teams are self-organized. So even if a single team member is not performing well, it should not affect the overall team performance. And on the other hand, maybe some individuals are performing well, but as a team, you haven't performed well, right? So individual performances are not the main KPIs for assessing the overall performance of the team. So when we do this assessment, we focus on team's assessment. Shankar?
Yes, but here key performance indicators are like setting standard for gauging the performance, right? Because for example, KPIs in my organization is like productivity, quality, and like on time delivery. So these are like setting the standard for the assessment. So the if a project is like successful or not, it is gauged by like on time delivery and achieving the productivity and like achieving the desired quality. So based on this only, like we'll be discussing with the clients that the entire team has like this much quality, we have delivered this much on the time. And so like it helps to like negotiate with the client that and define that it is a success. So like without standard, like how can we like able to like tell that it is like achieved success or not, like it met the objective?
Okay, Shankar, there is no option in the question that says you don't need KPIs, right? So there is no option that explicitly says that assessing the overall team achievement without KPIs. So if you have such option, then you can see, right? So the focus is on overall team performance, right? Rather than individuals. That is the concept here. All right, let's move to next question. All right, Fahad, you have chosen D. Why? We're not able to hear you. Chinamis, you have chosen option C. Why?
Yeah, I think this allows you to understand the team members who are motivated by money that would require micromanagement, and ones who are self-motivated, and they can know how you can manage the team members to speeding up the work. That's what I think.
Okay, so how theory X and theory Y is relevant to this? Theory X and theory Y has nothing to do with, you have chosen option C, right?
Yes, yes.
So theory X and theory Y has nothing to do with money and something like that.
No, I mean, what I read about theory X and Y is the ones who are not motivated, who are not self-motivated, might need to be micromanaged, right? Ones who are self-motivated do not need to be micromanaged. They are trusted to work on their own. So it helps you understand what the team members, how you can manage both all the team members, the ones you need to micromanage and the ones you need to take responsibility on their own. That's why I chose C.
Okay. Yusuf, you have chosen option D. Why?
Because here we are looking for the performance. They did not achieve the performance stage, and this can be because of their storming, forming process is not well established. So I have to go analyze it through this ladder, and if they are reaching the performing, there may be something else related to logistic and other things. So this was unsatisfactory. We have to be sure about the team dynamic first.
Right. Is there any indication in the question that helps you come to option D?
It's the past. The past now here, when you speak about the past, is performing. It's a performing process. So they are not in the performing process, and they are not progressing. So they are not in that stage. So maybe they are in the earlier stage, still storming or forming. So we have to understand the team dynamic and then to look for the logistic. Maybe the logistic is over. You have a lot of things around you, but you don't use it because of the team. They are not collaborating.
All right, all right. Thank you. Sergio, you have chosen option A. Why?
I thought that knowing how to sorry, Knowing how to motivate individual members of the team and the muscle hierarchy of needs could provide us with how we could motivate them, could improve the situation.
All right, I like the argument. And if we apply the similar argument on theory B, which is Herzberg's two factors theory, don't you think that theory would also help you understand what would motivate people and what would not? If you really want to motivate people, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs would also help you to understand motivation. Herzberg's two-factor theory would also help you understand motivation. So, and if we look at McGregor's theory X and Y, this also helps in understanding what motivates people, right? What sort of leadership style do we need in order to motivate individual? So sometimes you get the answer by looking at options. So if you look at this, three options are addressing motivation. And only the fourth option, which is not a motivation theory, Bruce Tuckman team development ladder, that is different stages of team development. So if you look at the question again, it says at the beginning of the project, right? This is the keyword. At the beginning of the project means we have just started the project, means we are in the forming stage or storming stage. The project manager is finding the pace of the team progress to be unsatisfactory. To understand and potentially improve the situation, which theory or model could provide insights? So it's Bruce Tuckman team development model that provide insight at which stage the team is right now. If team is in storming, it means there are conflicts which needs to be resolved. Then team needs to move to norming, performing, and adjourning. Correct answer is option D. Lela?
So all the three A, B, C, they both three theories are for motivational team motivations.
Yeah, absolutely. These are motivations theories. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there are 5 levels of needs. And if you want to motivate someone, focus on the current level of need.
Okay, and then the D is what you said? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
D is Bruce Tuckman team development model. It's a development model, like a team moves through 5 different stages from initiation till completion. So question is about at the beginning of the project, means team is in the formation stage or maybe in the storming stage. So first you need to determine what stage team is. If it is in formation, you need different strategies because team dynamics are different in formation. If it is storming, you need different strategies. So sometimes you find the keyword in the question, which is in this case is at the beginning of a project. And sometimes you read the options, you try to find out, okay, 3 options are similar. It means fourth would be the right answer. Okay, let's read the explanation. All right. So yes, Shankar, you're right in the beginning. And if you understand like team is in the beginning, then you need not to be worried because it's a natural process. It's natural progression. In the start, progress would be slow and gradually it would improve as team moves from storming, norming, and performing. Let's move to the next question. All right, Fahad, you have chosen option A. Why?
You just told us that management by objectives was a technique in which the objectives are decided for the individuals with their participation. And since the question is talking about the midpoint of the project, that was a keyword for me, so I assumed it was a milestone. So these were the two things that led me to A. First, a milestone, and then we see if the project milestones are completed as planned to meet project objectives. So we plan the objectives.
All right. What was the first step of MBO, by the way? We have talked about 5 steps. What was the first step?
Define organizational objectives.
Define organizational objectives. And then second step was cascade those objectives to the team objective or translate them into team's objective. So this is management by objective. This is the crux of management by objective. And the third step is asking team members, involving them and asking them, okay, define your objective yourself. So there are 2 things in management by objective. First, translating organizational objectives into team members' individuals' objective, and then letting people deciding their own objective. So autonomy and freedom and participation and commitment. So management by objective is focusing on organizational objective and then translating them into individual objectives to make sure that individual objectives are well aligned with organizational objectives. That is management by objective. So option 1, checking if project milestones are completed as planned. This is just simple monitoring. This is not management by objective. This is simple monitoring, right? Whatever theory you're using, this is just you're monitoring milestone. This has nothing to do with management by objectives. Second is evaluating team performance against objectives aligned with the job description, not with the job description, with the organizational objective. Analyzing how individual team members' objectives align with the and contribute to overall project goals. That is what management by objective is. So we start with overall goals, and then based on overall goals, we define individual goals. So when we assess, we see how individual objectives, individual efforts have contributed to the achievement of overall goal. This is management by objective. Examining the achievement of team-wide objective rather than, no, that's not what we do in management by objective. Let's read the explanation. So I hope it is clear. So management by objective addresses a key problem. Sometimes you might have seen a situation where performance of team member is amazing. Everybody is getting 90%, 100%, 95%, A grade. But overall, organizational performance or project performance is not that much impressive. Why? Because individual performances are not aligned with the organizational performances. Individual goals or KPIs are not aligned with the organizational goal. So here, through management by objective, we address that problem. We align individual goals with organizational goals to make sure that if individuals are performing well, then organization or project should also perform well. So this is management by objective, Rahul.
It's confusing because remember one question before we were discussing about performance and like team reviews and blah blah. But here we are actually talking about milestones and project performance. So it's a little bit confusing that now we are, while talking about projects performance, we are counting teams objectives because anyways, teams working on whatever the project is. So I'm a little bit confused on what their personal objectives could, really, that's a little bit confusing because at once we are talking about, no, we're not looking at teams' personal growth or personal that, but here we are totally opposite, that we also need to see what their objectives are rather than focusing on milestones. And so
That's a
not.
good question because these are different theories. We talk about multiple theories. So, for example, if we say, what is Maslow's hierarchy of need, it has a different perspective. We talk about theory X and theory Y, it has an entirely different perspective. So, it doesn't mean both are wrong. It's just a different way of looking at things. So, management by objective is different, right? So,
But that's not how
that's not.
we normally look at goals and everything. We don't really, I mean, everyone's objectives are aligned with whatever company's objectives are. Otherwise, there's a problem. That's totally different topic. But yeah, I mean, it's a bookish theory, but it doesn't really work in real world, I think. That's my perspective.
That is your perspective, but you're saying the same thing. You're saying everyone objectives are aligned with organizational objective. You're agreeing with this? Do you agree? Like
Yeah, otherwise
yeah,
they don't carry on, I would say.
absolutely. This is management by objective. The focus of management by objective is that to make sure individual objectives are aligned with organizational objective. That is MBO, right? So what you're saying is there are different answers because there are different theories. So for example, one theory is MBTI, Myers-Briggs type indicator. Other is Big Five indicators for personality testing. A lot of people do not believe in MBTI. They say, no, MBTI does not reflect the right result, but it's a theory. If we are discussing the theory, we need to talk about that, even if you think it is right or wrong. Maybe you don't use MBTI in your real world scenario, but when you talk about theory, you need to discuss that, whatever it says. It is right or wrong, that's a different thing. You understand? We're talking about conceptual understanding of a theory, like what is MBO, what is the focus of MBO. Now, it is applicable or not applicable, that's step number 2. Okay. So MBO, the focus is on alignment of individual objectives with organizational objectives and making sure team members are involved in setting their own goals. So this is how we make sure that if team members are achieving their goals, they would be able to achieve organizational goal. This is MBO, a specific theory. Yes, if we talk about another theory, let's suppose we talk about equity theory, that is entirely different. Like maintain justice within the organization, then team member would be satisfied. If we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that is entirely different, like focus on the right level of need. Now, we can't say Maslow is saying focus on the right level of need. MBO is saying focus on objectives. So both are contradictions. No, those are not contradictions. Those are targeting two entirely different set of characteristics. This is a different perspective that we are taking into consideration. So yes, if it is a generic question without any reference to a theory, then you can say like previously we have discussed something else, here we are discussing something else. But if there is a specific reference to any theory, any concept, then we need to stick to that. And we can't say this is right or wrong. This is just a perspective by an author, by a researcher. So we will be following that. All right. Any other comment, anyone, please? Next question. All right, Sergio, you have chosen option C. Why?
I chose the option C because, as I remember, the shadowing would be option A, and option C is opposite of option A, and so reverse shadowing is C.
Okay, all right. Jashri, you have chosen option A. Why?
I think that reverse shadowing is a novice team member watching an expert complete the tasks.
All right, that is called job shadowing. This technique is called job shadowing. Observing someone expert how the work is being done, that is called job shadowing. Reverse shadowing is an expert reviews or observes how a new team member is performing the work. So option C is correct answer. Let's read the explanation. All right, I hope it is clear. If not, you can ask. Next question. All right, Shankar, you have chosen option C. Why?
Yes, because here they mentioned that the people they don't have the experience in predictive methodology, or that is like waterfall training. They need it, but in order to perform any change in the project, we need to submit a change request form in order to update the PMP, that is like project management plan. So that is the initial step which they need to do. Once they identified that they already identified that they are lacking in certain skills. So in order to make any changes, they need to do the change request form. They need to submit to initiate the process.
Okay, thank you. Yusuf, you have chosen option D. Why?
Because when we have a problem, as described here, I prefer to know where I am in the project itself. If I'm in the early phases, I need more training maybe. But if I'm at the end of the project cycles, I should look for something else because the training is almost done.
Okay, but option D says conduct needs assessment to see if you have right project life cycle. So is there any indication in the question that says you have confusion about the life cycle or you're not sure what is the right life cycle? So needs assessment is being done to see which life cycle you need to use. But the question doesn't say anything about that. You're right, like we need to do needs assessment, but if the question says or the option says needs assessment to see why team members do not have the right skill set, then it could be the right answer. You understand?
Yeah.
So needs assessment to see project life cycle, this doesn't make any sense because that is not the problem in the question. If you look at the question, what is the problem? Problem is you're working in a construction project that requires predictive methodology, but your team members, they lack relevant skill set and your plan does not have any provision for that. What should you be doing? So as Shankar mentioned, you have already identified the problem, but your plan does not allow for any such training, or it doesn't have any provision, maybe from funds perspective or due to any other reason. So in order to handle the situation, let's read the option, convert I-shaped individuals to T-shaped individuals. Both are entirely different things. T-shaped individuals are generalizing specialists. If the question is about lack in coordination and collaboration, then A might be the right answer. But here, people lack specific skill set. So actually, they need to be I-shaped individual. So this is exactly opposite. Option B, organize relevant project management training for team members. Yes, that is the right option or the best option to do, but your plan does not have any such provisions. In order to do that, you need to update your plan. In order to update your plan, you need a change request, and change request would be approved by sponsor. Only then you can organize those change initiatives or trainings or whatever you have. All right, let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, so Francis, you have chosen option B. Why? You're not audible. Okay, Lala, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, so I think the functional manager should be responsible for, making sure the necessary training are done for this in this scenario.
Okay. What is the job of a functional manager, by the way? Who are the functional managers?
Isn't it the project manager who oversees the project manager, the functional manager?
No, functional manager is a different role. Project manager is a different role. Sarika?
Yeah, functional manager is someone at the business end.
Absolutely. So departmental head or business unit head is a functional manager. They have nothing to do with project teams and they have nothing to do with projects. Their job is routine functions, operations, or support to projects. So it's your project. It's a complex project that requires specialized skills from your team members. Currently, your team lacks some of these skills and needs development to meet the project objective. Functional managers have no idea about your project.
Then this project manager, then right? Then it's the A probably the right answer.
It's the project manager. It's the project manager's primary responsibility to find out any sort of shortcomings in the team and then finding or developing a plan to fulfill those needs. Right, Sergio?
Yeah, I chose B because so a keyword that I observed is let me specialized skills, and I thought that me not being a project manager not being a functional manager. So he sometimes can just not know what skills are lacking, and the best person to know what skills are needed for the task is the functional manager, and the functional manager is one of the responsible to assign the right team members. So that's why if it would be a general skill or people skill, yeah, that would, the project manager, I would choose the A, obviously. But how the project manager should know what exactly the team member lacks.
All right. So, Sergio, the problem here is that functional managers, they have nothing to do with your project. They are not involved in your project. It's you leading the project. You know what sort of skill sets you need for your team. If you don't know what sort of skills your team need, then you're not the project manager. That's the primary job of project manager, to form team. So initial team is formed by project manager based on the fact that what are the right skill set project manager need to perform that project. So it's the project manager's primary responsibility, not the functional head. Functional head's job is to manage the function, and whenever certain resources are needed by project manager, to provide those resources. That's it. Now, what is project manager's requirement? It all depends upon specific project needs, and that would be determined by project manager. And project manager would see what are the skills which are not there by observing team member, by conducting needs assessment, root cause analysis, by doing performance assessment, and then overseeing or managing the development of your project team. Developing your project team is not job of functional head, because your team is comprised of 10, 15 people. So it means 15 people would be involved in developing. It's your job to develop your team according to or to fulfill needs of your project. Let's read the explanation. All right, so when you read the contents, specifically when you read roles and responsibility of project manager, you can specifically see it is clearly written. The primary responsibility of project manager from development perspective is making sure that you have right skill set, and if there are skill gap which is identified, how to fulfill or bridge that gap through development opportunities. Mohan?
Mark, in this scenario, if this was a balanced matrix organization, right, where the functional manager and the program manager are equal, have equal powers, would that scenario, in that scenario, would it change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it is weak matrix, let's suppose, then it is functional manager who is responsible for that. Absolutely correct. But there is no indication in the question, like, what is it? If it has been mentioned, then definitely you're correct, because in weak matrix or balanced matrix, functional manager has the authority to manage resources and their development. Right. All right, everyone. So I hope you have learned through this session. So we are still in people domain. Next lesson would be again people domain. So next 10 to 15 lessons would be about people domain. People domain is very important from exam perspective. If you need any kind of help, if you are struggling in application or in any way, you can schedule one-on-one meeting with me by scanning this QR code or just visiting my LinkedIn. You can find Calendly link, you can schedule meeting there, right? I hope you have enjoyed today's session and your preparation is going well. Don't hesitate to seek help whenever you need, and schedule your exam as soon as possible. 30 to 40 days is the ideal time. One of my students has passed exam in just 20 days. He completed my course on 28th of Jan, and today he told me he has passed the exam. And from the same group, One of my student passed exam in 10 days. I have shared all the details and everything with you already. So if people are passing exam in 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, at least you should do it in 30 days. So 30 to 40 days is the ideal time. Anything beyond that is, unnecessarily delaying your certification. So just do it, right? All right, everyone. Thank you so much. See you on Friday with another topic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Amar.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Amar.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.